Number 10. This happened to me when I was 17. Me and my family used to live in the area where it took you an hour to get to the city and a 15-minute walk to get to your neighbours. So there was quite a bit of distance between us and our neighbours. It was the summer and it was quite hot during the day, so I jogged during the early hours of dawn, say 4 or 5. During the first few days of this, I was hesitant to jog alone, especially in the early hours of dawn, but as it became a routine, the fear faded. One particular day, I was jogging as usual when a twig to my right, it snapped. Thinking it was an animal of some sort, I carried on my way until I heard it snap again. I stopped and turned the flash on my phone on and inspected the wood around me. Stupid, I know. Finding nothing, I turned on my heels to leave when I heard a sniff. I turned around to see this naked guy who looked like he hadn't showered in days, with a long-ass beard, just standing there, eyes wide, smile so wide it was cartoonish. I ran as fast as I fucking could. This guy was right at my heels. As I reached our backyard, our motion detecting lights came on, and I guess it scared him off. My dad called the cops, and I gave them a description. Turns out that this sick fuck tried to rape 2 other women in a situation similar to mine. I now learn not to jog early in the morning. Number 9. I'm a 20-year-old female, and I was recently talking to my mum about a family member of mine that we had cut off contact with. During this conversation, my mum told me something that she had wanted to keep hidden from me. I was almost kidnapped. When I was almost 1 year old, my mum took me to the mall with my great aunt, my grandmother's sister. All was well until my aunt offered to take me shopping with her to allow my mum some time to shop for herself in peace. Now, my mum didn't trust a lot of people to take me alone due to some heartbreak in the past, but I won't go into that here. But anyway, my mum allowed my aunt to take me under the condition that we would be in the store next door and my aunt would meet her every 30 minutes to check in. Now, don't get me wrong, my mum loved my aunt very much and had no reason not to trust her. She was just overly cautious. Well, 30 minutes go by and my mother walks next door, assuming my aunt forgot, but both she and I were nowhere to be found. My mother asks the store associates if they had seen us, and they all said no, prompting my mother to freak out and call mall security. In minutes, mall security had the mall on lockdown while they searched for me. In the end, I was found in the store's back room with my aunt, trying to find somewhere to sneak me out. My mum took me away from her and she took me home. My mum never pressed charges, but got a restraining order against her. We never saw her until a few years after the incident because she had moved to Florida with my other great aunt Casey. Unfortunately, my aunt Casey was found dead a few years back after my aunt was living with her. Foul play was suspected, but my aunt was never found to question and is still free somewhere. My mum lives in constant guilt over her internal debate over not pressing charges 19 years ago. She feels that if she had, maybe she could have prevented my aunt Casey's death. Number 8. I'm no storyteller, and my grammar is shit, so I want to apologise for that. This happened between late 2009 and early 2010. I live in a really small town in the suburbs of a big city in the Midwest. I remember first hearing about it in school. I was 13 and in 7th grade at the time. This took place in reading class. We had a pretty cool teacher, so we messed around a lot and talked all the time. The talk at my school was about these door-to-door magazine salesmen. Apparently, they would come to your house and ask if you wanted to purchase a magazine subscription, and got aggressive if you denied. This girl in my class was telling us that one guy selling magazines came to her house, and her mum let him in. He was telling her mum how beautiful she was, and kept complimenting her. At one point he smelled her hair, and asked, "What shampoo do you use?" To which she replied with, "I don't know, the one my husband buys." And the guy was taken aback that she was married, and made some excuse to quickly leave. They visited 2 other kids in that class, but their stories are pretty uneventful. At that point, they hadn't visited my house, until a few weeks later. I was sitting on the couch watching TV, while my mum and stepdad were in the basement playing darts or something. It's about 2 PM, and I hear a knock on the door. I open the door, and it was some skinny white guy, early 20s, about 5'7". He had a Monster Energy wallet in his hand. He says to me in a southern accent, "Yo yo yo, is your dad around?" I tell him 1 second and leave the door slightly open. We have a glass door after the main door, and as I'm walking down, I hear my dogs growling at him. Which is weird, because they rarely ever do that unless they're really angry. I tell my mum and stepdad that some random guy we've never met before is here, and they immediately get red flags due to him asking, "Is your dad here?" instead of, "Are your parents here?" So my stepdad goes up and talks to him for about 2 minutes. He comes back and starts bitching at me for leaving the door slightly open. The guy asked him if he wanted to buy a magazine subscription, to which of course he denied, and asked him, "Where are the young people at?" To which my stepdad replied, "Oh, we're all old around here," to ward him off because he had a really bad feeling about him. Okay, so fast forward 2 months. My stepdad asks if I remember the situation from a couple of months ago, and he shows me the paper. It turns out the magazine salesmen were a group of scam artists from Missouri that were targeting small towns in different states. There were about 4 of them, and they would individually go door to door and steal people's money with fake magazine subscriptions. One of them got arrested for sexually assaulting a woman in the next town over, in her own house. That's how their cover was blown. Luckily, the mugshot wasn't of the same guy that came to my house. But it makes me think, what could have happened to that girl's mum if she wasn't in the room with her? Or if my mum was home alone and answered the door? I'm glad those sick fucks were caught in time before they could do more harm. So, creepy door-to-door magazine salesman? Let's not meet. Number 7. Hello everyone. This happened last winter. If the story is misplaced, I'll move it, but I think it will fit the sub. So, I'll start off by giving you a little background. I am, like most girls on this sub, a really short, skinny girl. I attend a school on a pretty well-off neighbourhood, but it's really on the border zone. So you have the middle high class on one side of the avenue, and the extremely poor people on the other. A few other friends and I usually wait for the bus on the poor side of the avenue. And I think I should mention that the bus stop is right after the intersection of another avenue, so the red light lasts for a good minute. Luckily, this time I was with Anne. Now, we were waiting and chatting for a bit, and we see this guy coming. He looked like he was high, as he was sweating, even though it was a really cold winter day. He had dirt on his knees and elbows, and a glassy look in his eyes. He stops walking and asks me what the time is. I check and tell him that it's 13:45, as politely as I could. I've been taught that if you can avoid conflict, it's better to do so in the most polite way possible, so that you don't upset anyone. He stops and stares at me for a good 30 seconds, and tells me that I have a beautiful set of eyes. I usually grow really awkward at compliments on my eyes, because I have trichotillomania, and in consequence, have no eyelashes. So, I turn my back and try to make conversation with my friend. He walks right up to her, and also greets her with a kiss in the cheek, and says something about her piercing blue eyes. And then he breaks off onto a weird speech. "Look, girls, I am simply looking for something that belongs to me." At this point, I thought he was going to rob us, but it turned out to be something creepy. "A girl with beautiful, light-covered eyes that belongs to me, and I was thinking that maybe you two could come with me, or I could join you wherever you're going. While we're at it, where are you going?" We were actually going back to her place to revise for an exam. Now, I look at her quickly, but intensely, and answer while looking at her, "We're going shopping." She got my not-so-subtle hint and agreed. He then said that he'd take us shopping. I checked to see if the bus was about to arrive, and holy Christ, it was arriving. Until the goddamn red light brought it to a halt. Shit. My friend looks when she sees me look away, and he said something really chilly. "You know, it's going to be a long time until the bus arrives." And he put one of his arms around my waist. And Anne scolded me for talking to an off-looking stranger. Number 6. I was around 14 at the time of this incident. I was in high school and had just recently moved house to a bigger place, just further away. I still attended the same school, but I would either get the bus or walk, even though it took about an hour to get there. I would usually walk with a friend that lived on the same street as me, and then we would go meet up with some other friends as we got to the shops. Now, I usually chose to walk from school, because even though it was longer, I could keep the money for myself, and I would also walk with my friends anyway. Fast forward about a month, and it's now winter time and it got pretty dark early. I was waiting to walk home with my friends, but the one who lives on my street had to stay behind for extra work, which I wasn't too bothered about, so we just left. As me and my other friends get to the shops, they go one way and I carry on my way. Now just after the shops is a park which I have to pass through to get home. It's normally not too bad, because people are usually always in there. But today, there was no one. Now, I should also say, I'm a very paranoid teenager, and aren't that tough either. So, as I'm walking through the park, I get about halfway, and see a man walking on another path, which intersects with the one that I was on. Nothing was off at first, but being paranoid, I kept glancing at him, trying not to make it obvious. I saw him look at me, and then look down at his feet, and then back at me. But now, he's just staring at me as I carry on walking, acting as if I haven't noticed. As we're getting closer to each other, he goes off of his path and starts getting closer to me. He's still staring at me, and then grabs hold of one of those hand seesaw things which you spin around on. I was starting to get a little scared now. I end up passing him, his eyes still following me. As I get about 10 meters away from him, I hear him start walking up behind me, but keeping the distance. Even when I started speeding up, I could hear him doing the same. After about a minute, I could still hear him behind me. But now, he did something that still scares me to this day. He started slowly clapping and whistling behind me. I didn't want to look back at him, so I just started getting faster and faster, until finally, I saw the exit to the park. I had never been so happy. I started sprinting over the grass as fast as I could, and ran as fast as I could towards the road. I don't know why, but I decided to look back towards the park that I just exited, just to see if he was still there. As I looked back, I saw him, and he just smiled at me, and then went back into the park. I don't know what his intentions were, but I know that I didn't walk through that park alone again. I'm now 18 years old, and still thinking about it scares me. I just hope that no one got hurt by him, and he was maybe just trying to scare me a little. Either way, creepy guy that followed me through the park, let's not meet again. Number 5. Long time lurker, first time poster, so bear with me here. This is a story that I think totally belongs on here, but it didn't happen to me. It happened to my childhood friend and roommate at the time. So my roommate and I went to college in a big university town in Wisconsin. We both grew up and went to high school together prior to this incident about 2 hours north of said college town. The drive from the college town to back home is boring, flat, mostly desolate Wisconsin farmland. There is, however, one small town that is halfway point, where we typically stop to get gas or grab snacks during the trip. And this is where our story begins. My roommate Karen was headed home for the weekend. I stayed back at our apartment in the college town. She called me frantically to tell me what happened. So Karen reaches the small town that acts as a halfway point for the drive to our hometown. She pulls into one of the 2 gas stations in the little town. The highway goes directly through this 1 mile stretch of town before getting back to flat farmlands for miles. It is about 8 PM and darkness outside. She doesn't need gas. She only stopped to get an energy drink because she was feeling sleepy and still had an hour to drive through darkness before she got to our hometown. Since she didn't need gas, she pulled into a parking space next to one other car. She got out of her car and immediately saw that there was someone else sitting in the driver's seat of the car next to her. She only briefly looked, but noticed that it was a middle-aged woman. The woman was looking at Karen and made eye contact, so Karen looked away and went to the gas station, but really didn't think much of it. Karen gets her energy drink and exits the store. She starts walking towards her car and realizes that this woman parked next to her is intently watching her as she's walking to her car. Karen gets into her car, locks the door, and fidgets with her energy drink and her music for a moment, preparing to embark on the rest of the trip home. Before leaving, she feels the woman's eyes on her and looks up at the car next to her. The woman is looking at Karen, and when they made eye contact, she gives her a big grin. Then she proceeds to take what looked to Karen like a small thin knife, almost like a letter opener, and stabbed herself repeatedly in the face. The way she describes it to me reminds me exactly of that scene with Winona Ryder in the film Black Swan. The woman began stabbing herself while looking at Karen, but then began studying herself in the rearview mirror while continuing to stab herself. Karen stared in disbelief, and then threw her car into reverse and sped out of the parking lot. She called me right away, freaking out, and asked if I thought she should call the police, to which I replied, absolutely. She called the police, and that was that. She never heard anything of it. After this incident, neither of us go to that gas station anymore. We either go to the other one that's in that town, or we avoid shopping in the town completely. Karen says the worst part about the whole thing was the woman's sinister grin and how she made sure Karen was watching her when she started stabbing herself. Creepy, stabby woman. I hope you got the help you needed, and let's not meet again. Number 4. My mum told me this story many times as a cautionary tale when I was little, and I thought of sharing it with you guys. My mum is the second of 7 children, and even as a young child, she always had to take care of her younger siblings. My grandmother was going through some rough times, plus she was living with my grandpa, although they were separated, and he worked the whole day to provide for the family. Grandma couldn't always keep an eye on the gang, so the older brother and sister mostly took the kiddies around and took care of them. My grandparents, however, always made sure to teach their children the basics. Do not accept anything from strangers, not even the ones offering you gifts. One day, my mother and her younger brother were out alone. I don't remember for what reason. Maybe they just got out of school, or they were outside a store waiting for my grandma. However, they were alone. My mum was around 10, and my uncle maybe 5. There comes this guy and approaches my mum and uncle. "Hey guys, how are you doing?" And some shit talk like that. My mum and uncle turn away, dismissing the dude like they'd been taught. So this guy goes to plan B. "I got some candy in my car. You can have it if you want." That's right, the oldest trick in the book. My mum, suddenly oblivious to the common sense she had applied to the situation up to that moment, turns to the man smiling, ready to get that candy pie going. And I probably wouldn't be typing this if it wasn't for my uncle, 5 years old, and apparently able to see all the red flags at once. He flat out started yelling at the top of his lungs. "He's an abductor. He wants to take us away. He's using the candy trick. We are not falling for that." Needless to say, the man booked it as fast as he could, as the bypassers turned to look. My mum now laughs about it, but yeah, thanks uncle. Number 3. So, when I was little, I was obsessed with ballet. I took classes and had leotards of every different colour. We had a pageant once, where we were Old MacDonald's animals. So ever since then, depending on the colour of the leotard, I was a different animal. I was 4, I think. I was wearing my black leotard in the front yard while my dad worked on his car. I remember this day. Since I was in my black leotard, I was playing the role of the cricket. So, I had set hula hoops all over the front yard, and I was jumping from them like a cricket. I remember seeing the same car pass several times. I remember thinking it was a funny and old man was driving his car. Finally, I reached the hula hoop closest to the street, and the old man stops driving. He gets out of his car, presumably not seeing my dad under the hood of his truck, and asks me if I can come look at his map and tell him where to go. I can remember that the danger did not register to me at the time. All I can remember thinking is I can't read a map. So I yell at my dad, "Daddy, this old man is lost." As soon as I yell to my dad, the old guy hauls ass to his car and drives away. My dad calls the cops, and they come to ask me what I saw. I tell them the old man was asking for directions, and asked me to go to his car to look at his map. I guess I was still too young to register stranger danger, but thank goodness I was way too smart to get into that old man's car. Sometimes, I still wonder what he would have done with me. Why on earth would you ask a small kid for directions? Number 2. I should start this post out by saying that I'm a nursing student and I was completing a rotation on a psych ward at this time. One thing to know about psych patients: certain behaviours are normal for them and certain behaviours are not. An example: depressed patients can have thoughts of suicide every day, and that would be considered their normal. Obviously still concerning and treated as such, but if they suddenly started having thoughts of homicide, that would be very concerning, because it's a dramatic change in their behaviours. Back to the story. Psych wards require frequent check-ins on patients, because who knows what they are up to in their rooms alone. They can be quite crafty, and you must stay on top of them. So, towards the end of the shift, I was doing my final check on a patient at 11 PM. I felt the hair stand up on the back of my neck, so I whipped around and noticed a super creepy figure in the door, separating my patient's room and the room next door, sort of like a hotel room door. She was not there when I entered the room. It was also pitch black at this time, so I shone my flashlight on the figure. It was a patient from a room down the hall, who was just wandering around. Figuring she was hallucinating or confused, I offered to walk her back to her room and help her get comfortable. As I was walking down the hall with the patient, we paused in front of the nursing station, which was dimly lit. As I was going to ask her nurse if she could have had some sort of sleep aid, the patient turned to me and said, "You have the most beautiful skin. I would love to skin you alive and wear it." Maintaining my professional nature, but scared shitless in my head, I said something along the lines of, "Now, we're not going to do that. We're going to get you to bed." As soon as I got her in bed and her sleep aid was given, I turned to shut out her lights, and just before the room went black, she gave me the most creepy and sinister smile I had ever seen, and had a look of pure evil in her eyes. I quickly shut the door and booked it back to the nursing station after that, and reported what she'd said to me to one of the most intimidating male nurses I've ever seen, who promptly called her doctor for her to be evaluated, because this sort of behaviour was very unusual for her, and not in her nature, which makes this 100 times more creepy. So, psych patient who suddenly took an interest in my skin, let's never meet again. Number 1. This happened about 2 weeks ago, while I was walking from my building to my aunt's at work. The city I'm in is a medium-sized one, and I don't have to walk very long to her building, but it's still a good 2 blocks away. A bit of background on myself first. I'm a transgender guy, female to male, who passes rather well for someone who is not on hormones. However, due to not being out to my family, I often wear women's jackets and neutral clothing, which can be a bit confusing for some people. That day, I had chosen to wear a purple jacket and matching hat, and from a distance, I could be mistaken for a female, since the hood was up. Back to the creepy part now. I was walking alone like usual, when I heard footsteps racing up towards me from behind, which is unusual. There really wasn't anyone else walking outside at this hour, but naive me thought someone was late to class, since my work is part of a college campus. I shrug it off until I feel someone grab my shoulder and turn me around. A very large man was there, and there was a truck nearby. He seemed surprised to see me though, and immediately let go of me once he had a good look at my face. He ran to his truck, and someone drove him away, and I ran the rest of the way to my aunt's office. Later that evening, the same man was on the news for an attempted abduction of a young girl in that area, just a few blocks away from where he'd grabbed me. Well, anyway guys, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, then please leave a like, share and subscribe if you haven't already. I just want to say that one of these stories is actually my own personal one, but I won't tell you which one it is. I'll let you decide in the comments below. If you have any scary stories like this of your own, then please make sure to contact me, and you may be featured in a future video. Well, anyway, I hope to see you soon, and I will speak to you later.